When it comes to the cars we drive, quality isn't just a nice to have. It's a whole rule book. And that rule book is really written in two parts. First, you've got ISO 9001. That's the universal foundation for quality in pretty much any industry you can think of. But then you've got IATF 16949, which is like the high-performance upgrade built specifically for the insane demands of the auto industry. And together, they create the system that makes sure the car in your driveway is safe, reliable, and actually built to last. And hey, you don't have to take my word for it. This one sentence, right from the standard's own introduction, it sums up the whole deal. IATF 16949 isn't a replacement for ISO 9001, it's a powerful supplement. The best way to think about it is this. ISO 9001 is the solid, reliable engine block. IATF 16949, that's the turbocharger you bolt on for maximum automotive performance. You just can't have one without the other. All right, so here's how we're going to break this down. We're going to start with that universal foundation, ISO 9001. Then we'll get into why the auto industry needed to level up and create its own upgrade. After that, we'll look at some of the really specific high-impact requirements that IATF 1699 adds to the mix. And finally, we'll connect all these factory standards to the car you actually drive every single day. First things first, to really get what makes the automotive standard so special, you have to understand the base it's built on. So let's do a quick dive into the global benchmark for quality management, ISO 9001. At its core, ISO 9001 is all about creating what's called a quality management system, or a QMS. Now, this is not just some dusty binder sitting on a shelf. Think of it as a living, breathing playbook for the entire company. It's the formal system that documents every process, every procedure, every responsibility, all to make sure a company can hit its quality goals consistently, time after time. So, what drives this whole system? It's something called the Plan, Do, Check, Act cycle. And it's a beautifully simple but really powerful loop. You plan what you're going to do. You do it, you check the results, and then you act on what you learned to make it even better the next time around. This constant cycle of improvement is the absolute heartbeat of ISO 9001. And that cycle is built on 7 key principles. These are like the philosophical pillars of quality. You've got an absolute obsession with the customer, making sure leadership is driving everything from the top, and this is a big one, a commitment to making decisions based on cold, hard data, not just guesswork. These principles create a solid foundation for any great QMS, no matter what industry you're in. Okay, so if ISO 9001 is so great, so universal, and so effective, why on earth did the auto industry feel like it needed more? What was missing that one of the most advanced manufacturing sectors in the world had to go and build something on top of it? Well, this standard didn't just pop up out of nowhere. The International Automotive Task Force, the IATF, they've been working on this for decades. It all started way back in 1999 with a simple goal: get all the different car makers and suppliers around the world onto the same page when it came to quality. What we have today is the result of all that work. A single, incredibly tough standard for the entire global supply chain. And this slide right here, this shows you the critical shift in thinking. See, ISO 9001 aims for overall improvement, which is a great goal for any business. But IATF 16949 gets laser focused. It's not just about improving, it's about preventing defects before they can ever happen. It's about aggressively hunting down and stamping out variation and waste. The goalposts move from, hey, let's do better, to let's get as close to perfect as we possibly can. So what does this upgrade actually look like on the factory floor? Let's get into the nitty-gritty and check out a few of the key mandatory requirements that IATF 16949 adds on top of that ISO 9001 foundation. First step, and this is a huge one, product safety. Now, of course, safety is kind of implied in ISO 9001. But IATF 16949 makes it an explicit, documented, non-negotiable process. It's not just a good idea anymore. It's a strict requirement to have formal systems in place to make sure your parts aren't a hazard to anyone. And we're not talking about a vague statement here. This thing is a web of interlocking requirements. It forces companies to have documented processes for everything, from identifying safety laws to having reaction plans ready to go. It requires special approvals for things like FMEAs, which is basically a deep dive analysis to find all the ways a part can fail before it's ever made. And it demands total traceability, so every single part can be tracked from the raw material to the finished car. Safety is woven right into the fabric of the process. All right, next up, Let's talk about something the auto industry knows all too well: chaos. A single parts shortage or a factory shutdown can cause a massive ripple effect across the globe. IATF 1699 says you can't just cross your fingers and hope for the best. You have to plan for the worst. This is another huge level up from ISO 9001. The standard literally mandates that companies create and document contingency plans for all kinds of potential disasters. What's the plan if your main piece of equipment goes down? What happens if there's a cyber attack or a labor shortage? IATF forces companies to answer these really tough questions before a crisis hits, which builds a much, much more resilient supply chain for everyone. You know, at the end of the day, a car company is really just an assembler. The quality of that final car depends completely on the quality of thousands of parts from hundreds of different suppliers. IATF 6949 gets this, and it extends its reach way beyond the walls of just one factory. So what it does is mandate active supplier development. It's not enough for the big company to be certified. IATF 16949 requires them to have a program to guide their suppliers along this ladder, with the ultimate goal of getting them certified to the exact same tough standard. It's a massive, systematic effort to raise the quality of the entire automotive ecosystem, from the smallest supplier to the biggest brand. Okay, so we've been deep in the weeds with clauses, systems, and supply chains. But what does any of this actually mean for you, the person behind the wheel? How does all this complicated factory stuff translate from the assembly line to your daily drive? If there is one number that tells the whole story, it's this one: 0. The standard literally says that for certain kinds of inspections, we're talking simple pass/fail, is this part good or not, the only acceptable outcome is 0 defects. Not 1%, not 0.1%, 0. It's an incredibly powerful statement about the mindset behind this whole standard. So at the end of the day, what's the payoff for all this incredible rigor? Well, it all boils down to tangible benefits for all of us. You get increased product reliability, meaning fewer breakdowns and recalls. You get enhanced consumer safety, which is obvious. And the whole industry gets a more efficient, more robust global supply chain. It really is that simple. Every single clause, every audit, every contingency plan we've talked about, it's all another link in this massive chain of quality. A chain that stretches from a mine pulling raw materials out of the ground all the way to a vehicle you can trust your life with. The rigor in the supply chain leads directly to reliability on the road. But of course, this never stops. The standard is already tackling things like embedded software. But as our cars transform into rolling supercomputers, it leaves us with a really fascinating question. How do you guarantee quality and safety, not just in steel and plastic, but in millions and millions of lines of code? That, right there, is the next great frontier for automotive quality. Thanks for watching.